Hey guys, it's George Geddes from Esports. I'm joined today by Mad Lions mid laner Humanoid. He's joining me following the victory today against Origin. So I wanted to sort of begin today with the preparation for this match. Obviously, you are the best team in the LEC right now based on your current record. How do you actually prepare when you come into these games, especially against a team like Origin?
Today we just basically our preparation was about wanting to play Sona Lux bot lane because we think that it's really strong later on, and Origin is kind of a slower team that doesn't really punish early game. So that was basically our plan, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so all that had to happen is that they don't ban Sona or Lux in the first three bans, and then we basically win the game.
Yeah, I think those would be very obscure bands to say the least. I
Yeah.
mean, anyway. So I mean, if we actually move into the draft today, which I think it's sort of fair to say it was like a fun draft. It's not really the type of stuff you see in the LEC typically. Obviously the Sona Lux, Cloud9 combo in the bot lane, Hecarim jungle, R4 Renekton, Quinn, etc. Let's sort of break it down. What was your win condition today that you definitely wanted to focus on going into the draft?
With Sona Lux, I think the most important thing is to not get too far behind early game, because once you get to the mid game and you can start grouping as 5 mid lane, then the enemy team just cannot do anything. Like you just run it down and they can defend.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the only thing. Like if we are not like 5k gold behind at 15, then it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, if we continue with the draft, obviously, if I bring up the TF pick, because obviously he has actually been very prevalent this matter with his split push ability, something that you have utilized to the greatest extent. Was this something you felt could actually be a win condition in itself, or is TF not really that useful in this comp?
Uh, I think TF is really good at playing to stop the enemy from diving our silence,
Mm-hmm.
because you can always follow up with your ult, and they can't really do anything about it. So they kind of just have to kill you on mid lane, but then they cannot really dive. So yeah, and also it's really good again against the Queen later on in the game, because we can rotate really fast with Hecarim, and that's how we basically won the game. That we rotated with Hecarim from mid lane, and I just ult on the Queen, and once Queen dies, then they have no win condition,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, we can just end it.
Yeah. Was there anything when you looked at this draft? Obviously, they replied with I believe it was the Zyra Khan, the bot lane. Like, was there something when you looked at the draft you thought, okay, this is going to be an issue, or did you think this was just going to be another easy win?
I think after the draft, I know that we were gonna win, because I really don't see how the draft can win. Like they can for sure get ahead early, but I don't think they can close out the game, because like once we start grouping as 5, even if we are behind, we win anyway, because they have like Queen, which is kind of useless in team fights, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we just one shot their front line like Rek'Sai, so they cannot really do anything.
Yeah. So over the course of this split, if we sort of take a step back, you've obviously had some incredible results here and there, but one potential aspect I wanted to sort of hone in on today was communication, right? I noticed your team sort of fighting and then the CC chains being perfect. I mean, they were honestly just impeccable with the Sona Lux, for example. Has communication been something that you've actually focused on as a team?
Uh, I think communication is one of those things that you always focus on,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really important for any team.
Yeah.
So we focus on it basically every week in scrims. It's really important, and especially in this comp, like this is kind of a new play style that we didn't really play before, because it's Sona Lux. You don't really have an AD carry that you can rely on. So yeah, you have to improve your communication to play around the Sona Lux.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if we actually sort of piggyback on what you just said there, do we actually believe? Is there something? I mean, we talk about like team fights with Mad Lions, right? That's something that you guys are certainly really good at. But is there something, if we look back to the spring split, is there something you feel like you've drastically improved on compared to the summer split?
I think our map movement we improved a lot, because I think last split we were kind of lost on the map against like the good teams. We just felt like in the game it felt like we could not do anything, because we did not really know how to move our pressure correctly. So we worked on that, and right now we are doing it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's the thing that we improved the most.
Do you think that was an issue sort of outside of the game, or was this sort of more of an issue intertwined with like your champion pool, or was it just something that you felt like you just needed to improve as a team rather than potentially the individual champs in the mid lane or the bot lane, or was this just something that you felt overall needed to change?
I think this is an overall thing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to do anything with the champions. Um, I think it's more like you have to move a lot from lane to lane instead of playing for like two red plates in the early game, and that's what is happening in solo queue. So we had more of a solo queue playstyle, and
Mm-hmm.
that just doesn't work once the enemy has really good macro understanding and they actually move their pressure. So we had to improve on that.
I see. Do you notice any, when you come up against these teams, do you sort of notice any like solo queue play styles with some of these lineups potentially trying to take advantage of you guys, or are there sort of any specific teams that you feel like are actually like adopting this sort of spring split mentality where you have the solo queue style? Or do you feel teams have actually matured and sort of become into these split pushing teams where you've actually taken advantage of, the map advantages you guys get? Or have teams just sort of regressed to what you were saying and teams are sort of adopting this solo queue style?
I mean, I think the better teams are playing less of a solo queue style, and the worst teams are just playing more solo queue style. That's just how it works,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't really have that good game understanding for competitive. I think that's why they are like worse teams than the other ones.
Yeah. So going into the next few weeks, I believe you come up against Vitality and Rogue, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, Rogue being the stronger side. Do you feel like this could actually be your hardest matchup of the split, considering the level of skill on the Rogue side currently and how well they've been performing?
Mm, I wouldn't say that it's the hardest matchup. I don't really consider Rogue as like a top tier team. I know
Okay.
they are first place, but I think they're above average, and I think their mid game is not too good. So I
Hmm.
think we can take them on pretty easy.
Yeah. Is there a team regionally that you feel like could be your biggest threat? Perhaps G2, for example?
Yeah, I think G2 is still like, even though they are not doing that well in the standings, I think they are still a really good team, and I think they are the hardest team to play against for sure.
If we sort of add to that, when you look at, obviously, I'm assuming you've watched, some international teams, and going into Worlds this year, obviously, you aim to make it. Obviously, do you think? Well, who do you actually think will give you the biggest test internationally? Do you feel like it would be a European side, or an LCS side, or what do you actually think is going to be your biggest test?
I think it's probably going to be the Chinese teams. I
Hmm.
think Invictus Gaming and Top Esports are really strong, and yeah, they play the game really fast, and I think they're going to be the strongest team that we can play against.
Yeah. So if we sort of go overall, considering these impressive victories that you seem to be pulling out every single week, what do you actually feel that you can genuinely achieve with this Mad Lions roster this year?
Well, I think we can make it pretty far at Worlds. Of course, we first have to get there, but
Hmm.
yeah, but I think once we get to Worlds, I think it is possible for us to make it pretty far, maybe semifinals, maybe even finals if we get a bit lucky. So I think we can achieve anything actually.
All right, perfect. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me today.